This is what you want. This is what you get. This is what you
You have located GeekFest Rants, the entertainment podcast for genre geeks like you.
Shall we play a game?
Covering the world of vintage and current film and television since 2010.
Game over, man. It's game over.
Featuring in-depth conversations on sci-fi, horror, fantasy, comics, toys, and conventions.
So say we all. So say we all.
And now sit back, relax, and enjoy today's show.
Now, behold.
He's here. He's here.
Mother! Father is here!
The king, my lady. The king.
Your fate is set and you cannot escape it. How I've missed you, my son. One day this kingdom will be yours.
Thank you, Father. My king.
Father!
Remember, for whom you shed your last teardrop. I can feel now.
I will avenge you, Father! I will save you, Mother! I will kill you, Fiona!
I will avenge you, Father. I will save you, Mother. I will kill you, Fiona.
Why would he stow away to such a hellish place?
To find what was stolen from me.
And what is that?
The kingdom.
You must choose between kindness for your kin or hate for your enemies.
Your strength breaks men's bones. I have the cunning to break their minds.
And night by night, we will carry out my pledge of vengeance.
I will avenge you, Father.
I will avenge you, Father.
I will save you, Mother.
I will save you, Mother.
I will kill you, Fiona.
Hi, everybody, and welcome once again to GeekFest Rants. My name is Carlos Perone, and today we're going to review 4 movies that came out quite a bit ago. This episode is taking a little while longer than expected to come out, but this has also been a very exciting summer in terms of movies. I've been very surprised by the 4 films that I'm going to talk about today. And in a couple of future episodes, I'm going to bring up a couple of more films that completely blew me away, which is kind of unusual for a summer to have so many good movies available. The first one is going to be The Northman, which surprised me because of the fact that I was completely unaware of it until it showed up and it was like, oh, this looks interesting. The next one is Everything Everywhere All at Once. This is another movie that totally out of my radar, and I will talk about how I hooked onto this movie practically by accident and how unbelievably original and rich in terms of so many kind of genres that the movie can encompass into all, one shot. So yeah, that's the second movie we're going to be talking about. Then we are going to go to Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, this being the second solo outing for Doctor Strange. Very well done film, a very good Marvel entry. We have multiple Marvel entries every year. This one was probably one of the best, if not the best one this year. bonus points for Sam Raimi directing it. And I'll talk about all the little extras and surprises and how this particular one is almost a genre-defining film in terms of Marvel. Because, like with Marvel, you have your different ice cream flavors. And we talked about this before. You have your very serious political, more or less straight kind of film like Winter Soldier. Then you have your fantastical kind of films like the first few Thor films and Doctor Strange. And then you have your heavy sci-fi ones like Guardians of the Galaxy. And then you have your more kid-friendly ones like Ant-Man and Thor Ragnarok. So, yeah, you have all these different flavors. Captain America is in there too. He's a little more comic bookish, but serious. And this one was probably what would be considered the first one that is, first of all, because you are dealing with wizards or magicians or whatever you want to call them, it is in the fantastical realm. But this one tippy-toes a little bit into the horror world because of the fact that, first of all, Sam Raimi is directing, and the subject matter and the things that happen and the things they deal with, they are, horror-themed situations, if you will. So I don't know if they will make more like this, or this was just kind of like a trial balloon to see, how people react to it. I liked it. I loved it. I mean, it was great. We're still in the multi-universe. This is part of where we are right now phase-wise, and I had a really, really good time. And like I said before, wait till you hear about these cameos and surprise guests. They just blew me away. And finally, we hop over to the DC side for a look at the Batman. Again, this one came out a while ago, and just as always, whenever you think, okay, there's a new Batman coming with a new actor, with a new director, with a new point of view, if you will, of what they're going to do with Batman. This one, I went through the same patterns as usual, and I was still blown away by what a good job they did and how I can't wait for what comes next, in this particular branch, iteration of Batman. Great movie. Can't wait to tell you about it. But let's just get ourselves started with The Northman.
What did I teach you?
You are the Duke of New York. You're a number one.
You will not laugh. You will not cry. You will learn by the numbers. I will teach you.
Can you dig it?
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
That spawn of Satan.
Oh, really?
The Force will be with you, always.
All right, the first film we're going to talk about today is The Northman. I had seen a trailer on somewhere in one of the Facebook feeds, and then got a really good look at it, and I'm like, wow, this is looking kind of good. For some reason, as I'm watching the trailer and I'm kind of piecing together the story, I'm thinking Conan the Barbarian. And it's funny because I watched an interview with the director, Robert Eggers, who had previously done The Lighthouse and The Witch. So you kind of know where you're getting into when it comes to this director. And he talked about how the movie Conan the Barbarian was an inspiration, and there's homages to Conan the Barbarian in this story. The movie takes place like over 1,000 years ago, and it's an origin story, if you will, of a Viking that he is supposed to be nobility. He's the son of a king who, funny enough, his father is played by Ethan Hawke, out of all people in the world. And how his father's brother, that would be his uncle, betrays the father and massacres his family except for his mother. And how he escapes the massacre and ends up being raised by other wild Viking tribes, and he's like a warrior, and he is also, part of this life of pillaging and destroying and conquering, and becomes this, great kind of warrior. And the movie kind of follows the trajectory. Again, if you're thinking, imagine Conan the Barbarian without the sorcery. If you look at it as just a straight story of that kind of a character, they have some incredible battle scenes in this movie. They're just fantastic. The lead character is played by Alexander Skarsgård, who you probably have seen him in many films. Nicole Kidman plays his mother. And William Dafoe is actually in it too. He's kind of like a trainer, mystic kind of guy. And we follow this character through his quest for revenge, to kill the uncle that devastated his family, and to rescue his mother, because the uncle took his mother, didn't kill her. He killed the father, but he didn't kill the mother. And one of the things in this film that we find is that there are really no completely clean, black and white good guys and bad guys here. These are all kinds of very violent people. And even the way that he was raised, in terms of, his love for his father and, his nobility, if you will, it is built on barbarism. It is just completely barbaric. The way that even his own father's troops would just go in and devastate other tribes, as these small battles, wars would take place. And as he is raised by a different tribe, once he escaped being captured, he is raised in that manner too. He continues that. There's a sequence where they're attacking it's almost like a fortified area. And other than him, they are completely obliterating just about everybody, to the extent where there's a scene where you see like women and children being put in a house, and then the house being set on fire. And he doesn't necessarily directly participate in it, but he also doesn't stop it either. So we're given a very realistic view of what these people were like, in terms of, they are barbarian warriors. They're just, it's funny because they described his new tribe as berserkers. That's where that term comes from, I guess. These crazy warriors that are just super battle worn, and they can take quite a beating. Again, the cinematography and the staging of the battles is amazing in this film. The big turn in this film happens, when he meets a woman who he is very interested in. And the woman is, I think she's at one point accused of being a witch or something, which is funny because it's the actress that was in The Witch, one of the original films that made by this director. And then he has that split of where he's getting very close to that uncle. His uncle doesn't recognize him, obviously, because he's so much older, but he's getting closer and closer to him, and he's getting very close to, enacting his revenge. And he learns, again, spoiler alert, he learns that things were not exactly as they seemed to him as a child, that his quest, even though it's all in his mind in terms of that is the driving force that has kept him alive all this time and has strengthened him and has turned him into this battle machine that he is. It's all built on a false foundation of knowledge. And he realizes at that point that, his father really wasn't the great guy that he thought he was. And his mother most certainly was not the damsel in distress that he thought she was. And he has the opportunity towards the end of the film to put aside his vengeance and go away with this woman and try to start their own lives. Because the uncle, by the time he realizes where the uncle is he's no longer like the king anymore. He's kind of because of the years and I guess the political and the battles and all the things, he's kind of been cast aside. He's no longer in charge of a tribe or a small city or whatever. He's just like kind of like a landowner who is in charge of like maybe a dozen people. And he has his own set of slaves, because this is another thing. The battles, you get slaves and you end up with, farmhands and that kind of thing. And he has to make that decision of, do I go one direction or do I go in the other direction? And it's really brave, I think, for the director to let him pick one of those things. He could not have both. And it's a bit of a message movie, again, I guess, where you could say, well, if you want a happy ending, you got Conan, because that's, again, not only is it sword and sorcery, heavy on the sorcery, but in Conan, you get the satisfying end of, here's my mission. It was a worthy mission. It accomplished my goals and it got me what I wanted. But here, it's a little more realistic, where the person then finds out that his whole life has been more or less a lie. And he still cannot just but help himself to continue with that vengeance, with that drive, to the point of mutual destruction. Very good movie. I can't wait for this one to be on DVD or Blu-ray. The other thing is that it's all in native languages. So, it's a lot of subtitles and that sort of thing. Really, really good. Very different, again, from his previous films, because, again, The Witch was a very good film that turns very supernatural at the end, that really completely blows you away. And The Lighthouse wasn't very supernatural. It was just psychologically weird. But this one is much more of a straight film. There are certain sequences where he's dreaming and it looks very supernatural, but it's not. It's just dreams or that sort of thing. But this one caught me by surprise, and I loved it. It was very good. And like I said, it just reminded me so much of Conan. And in the same manner that I always talk about how certain films like The Joker, which we're going to talk about a little bit in a little bit, the reality of it, I gravitate so much to it more than the comic book portion of it. This movie kind of does the same as far as I'm concerned. It takes the Conan themes and plots and turns them into a real story, and see how that is applied to a character without the, the sorcery and the magic. So I definitely recommend this one. I really enjoyed watching it. The next movie that I want to mention is a completely bizarre movie that we watched. My wife and I went to see it, called Everything Everywhere All at Once. I have never seen a movie like this before. It is directed by Dan Kwan and Daniel Scheinert, better known as the Daniels. I've never heard of them before either. And the only reason I went to see this movie, before it got so many good reviews, was because I saw an article on Facebook about how it stars Ki-Yu Kwan, which is a name that probably most people don't recognize. However, he is the kid that played Short Round in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, and he also had a role in The Goonies. And then he disappeared for 30, 40 years. It's incredible. And I watched the trailer, and it was just a crazy trailer. It stars Michelle Yeoh, which we all know from so many films, and Asian martial arts films, and she was in Star Trek Discovery. She's apparently supposed to be getting her own show at one point. She works like crazy. She's everywhere. And the trailer was so intriguing in terms of her hopping through different universes as different personalities of herself in some kind of bizarre manner. Things are happening. Again, the trailer just gives you a taste of the weirdness of this film. So we got to see it, and yeah, it hops. The movie hops from her being a number of different versions of her, and something is happening where certain emotional things that happen to her trigger her bouncing between these different places. And there seems to be somebody in control of it that turns out to be somebody very close to her. Again, spoiler alert. what blew me away in this movie was not just the story, because the story is so original. Again, I've never seen something this wacky. I'm sure there have been movies somewhat like this before, but this one just works so well because, like the title, it's got everything. It's got the sci-fi multi-universe angle. It has the martial arts angle. There's a lot of martial arts in this film. And it does have a love story and a family story, which is, it's like, wow, that's like the heart of the film. The whole film, when you really think about it, it's about her relationship with her daughter and with her husband. Again, the husband is played by Kwan. The other thing that blew me away in this movie is how good Ke-Huy Quan was. I can't believe what a good action actor and just a good actor he is, even after being away from Hollywood for so long. I remember I watched Indiana Jones and I watched The Goonies, and I appreciated the character in Indiana Jones, but I felt it was just a little too much funny, too much slapsticky, which is the things that I don't like too much about the Raider films. The Raiders was, to me, perfect. Indy started to get a little goofy with Willie and Short Round as the comedic, but I get it. That's what they were going for, and that's what they got. And then when he did The Goonies, I am not a fan of The Goonies. The only thing I remember about The Goonies is a whole bunch of kids screaming at the same time. That's all I remember. And I've never warmed up to The Goonies, even though The Goonies was supposed to be one of these Spielberg-produced films that he didn't necessarily direct. I think it was a Richard Donner film. And that whole dynamic with all the kids screaming, excited, and running, and it didn't work for me. But as an adult, in this movie, he was fantastic. And there's a fight scene that is very iconic for this film where he's involved, where to me, I kept saying to myself, if they ever made a biography of Jackie Chan, this guy would be it, because he looks like a very young Jackie Chan, and he's got the moves. My God, does he have the moves? It's incredible how well the physical choreography of the fights that he's involved with. He does this whole fight with a fanny pack, which is it's the kind of the gig, the hook of the fight is the weird item that he decides to use. You could have weapons, you can have this, but he just happened to have a fanny pack, and he uses the fanny pack as a weapon, and it's so good. Again, you also have Jamie Lee Curtis. She plays kind of like a really nasty individual in one of these worlds, but she plays a very nice individual in another one of these worlds. There's a world where everybody has hot dog for fingers, which is, I can't even describe what I'm talking about. And it's one of the most tender, loving kind of sub-stories that are taking place in this movie. James Hong plays the grandfather, which he's been in so many films. And as a matter of fact, he just got his Hollywood Walk of Fame star. But the heart, like I said before, of the entire film is her relationship with her daughter and the problems that she's having with her daughter and the way that those two do not connect. How that is the crux of everything that is happening in all of these worlds. Very good, very again, I was so blown away because the movie had so many layers of, I don't know if you want to call them themes, because if there's a genre for this, it's kind of like fantasy sci-fi, I guess you could call it, because that's kind of where it's at. But it's a drama, it's a comedy, it's everything. Again, it's in the title. So once again, this is another one of these that as soon as it comes out on home media, I will be picking this one up. And it's the type of movie that, yes, they could make a sequel out of this. I would love to see Ke-Huy Quan in other movies, in a sequel to this movie. Like I mentioned before, he looks like a very young Jackie Chan. I wish somebody is thinking the same thing I am and takes advantage of it, because he's a perfect age and look and physicality and athleticism. It's amazing. Great movie. Speaking of multiverses, I also got to see Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. And this is another one of these Marvel films that is kind of now heading in a certain direction, just like the previous Spider-Man film, which I'd never had a chance to talk about, where we get introduced to all three Spider-Mans at the same time and some of the different bad guys from different films, which was fantastic how they worked that out. This kind of continues in that form in terms of that's what we are exploring, the multiverse. And one of the things that was really bizarre about this film is that for some reason, I thought that off the bat, the beginning of the film, the Doctor Strange that we are witnessing, the one that goes to the wedding of his ex, was already another multiverse. I was convinced that she had died, and I completely had forgotten that in the first film she didn't die. But I got confused with the What If animated series that they had on Disney Plus, the Marvel one, where there is an episode having to do with all these different possibilities of things that happened, and all of them leading to her death in one shape or another. So while I was watching the film, I was saying to myself, wow, this is amazing. They're completely in another place from the beginning. So we're not even in our Marvel world that we know. We're already somewhere else. Later, I found out that no, we were in the proper place. And that's the place we were always trying to get back to. I love this film. This was great. I think it was a great continuation to, like I said before, to the previous, to the Spider-Man one, where we had all the Spider-Mans at the same time. There are so many cameos, new characters, the introduction, again, and this is spoiler alert, up the wazoo, the introduction of Reed Richards and some other characters where we're like, okay, if this is the actor they're using for this particular universe, are we now to assume that when we get our Fantastic Four film, this is the actor that they're going to use? I really hope so. It was rumored for a long time that it would have been this particular actor. And yes, you get so many of these other characters that you're like, oh my God. Again, you got to watch the What Ifs because there's a lot of characters from the What If that end up coming into this story because of the crossing over of the multi-universes. The Scarlet Witch angle here was also very good because it continues what started with the television show. And I remember them mentioning at one point that the television show was supposed to have a cameo or a surprise scene with Doctor Strange that would tie it to this. And that makes sense now how those two could have been tied together. I don't know why they didn't. I think it would have been okay. Maybe it would have taken the surprise away from this a little bit. But her characterization of what she is going through since the television show, which is based on what happened to her, during the Endgame, the Thanos battle, how that kind of stayed with her and continues to mess with her. Very, very good. The introduction of the new character of America Chavez, which again, I had no reference of that. I think somebody said it was created for this. I think it's not based on anything specifically. And her particular background was very important and very good and very, very of the time, and how she is part of the key to this whole thing that's happening. Again, I really enjoyed this one. The manner and all the different universes that get crossed and the explanation of how it works. And just like I said, the cameos, the new characters they throw at us. It's like, oh my God, the stingers with new actors. And again, what's really cool about this is that in theory, because of the multi-universe, they can throw just about any actor to play any role, because you can say, yes, in this universe, so-and-so is the Hulk or Captain America or whatever. So they could go completely crazy in terms of casting and recasting because it doesn't really matter. Some places it will be the same person, but some places it might not be the same person. So it opens up the possibilities, casting-wise, of introducing so many new actors into the mix that it really makes it work. Again, I really, really enjoyed it. And it's nice to see the development of the Doctor Strange character, which, we got a full movie and then we got him in little bits and pieces here or there. But in this one, yeah, I think they really did good. And I forgot to mention, one of the best things about this movie was that it was directed by Sam Raimi. We do get a Bruce Campbell cameo, and actually you get two. And the movie was so Raimi-ish. The camera angles, the type of subtle Easter eggs that are thrown around everywhere from previous rip. There's a lot of Evil Dead stuff in the mist. There's so much of Raimi in this film that when you're a Raimi fan, it's like a bonus. If you have no idea who Sam Raimi is or his films, you're like, okay, this is, and that's one of the things that I'm saying. This is more of a horror film. It's really a very scary version of Marvel, let's say. And it's got Raimi written all over it. And I hope that means that Raimi can come back to making some films, maybe more Marvel. I don't care. But this is one that you can definitely see the director's stamp on the film, you know, from what we are used to. Another Marvel hit as far as I'm concerned. The last film I want to mention is The Batman. This is a movie that came out quite a bit ago. It's already on HBO Max, and I think it's coming to home media pretty soon. This is a film that, once again, once it was announced, the question that crosses everybody's mind is, really? Already we're going to reboot it again? Again, we were coming off of the Snyder version of Batman, which was introduced in the Batman vs. Superman, I think it was. And those films, you know, the Snyder cut and the Whedon cut and this Justice League, of which I've talked about in the past how I prefer the Snyder cut. Specifically, I love the new Batman stuff. I love the Joker stuff, the additional Joker stuff that he was added to that film. And this time around, theoretically, this was supposed to be the next film of that series. And this was supposed to be Affleck's next film. And at one point, I believe, if I remember right, he was going to obviously star in it. And then at one point, I think he said he would just act in it. He wouldn't direct it, or he would direct it and not act. I don't know, something like that. And then he completely bowed out. And instead, they got Matt Reeves, who directed the newer reboots of the Planet of the Apes films, which was kind of like, oh, okay, well, that's a plus in my book. You know, I enjoy those films. And one of the things that I really enjoyed about this film, again, just like everybody else, I was a little doubtful. The casting of Robert Pattinson was a little, however, most people remember Pattinson from the Twilight films, but I also have seen some other films that he's done. Crazy films, like The Lighthouse. Good Times, I think, is another film. Cosmopolis, I think I'm still in the process of watching that one. He's been doing some really, really crazy work lately that is like, wow, this guy's got some chops. So into this film I went. I think it got some good hype and good publicity. And the world that this particular director has built now for this particular reboot is a world that I love. To me, the easiest way to describe this film is take the aesthetics and the reality, if you will, of the movie like Joker. We talked about this in the past. We talked about it earlier today. I was mentioning it. How you almost strip away the comic book and leave the reality, the gritty film noir reality instead. This film does that. This film doesn't give you an origin story. It jumps to, I think, year 2 of Batman already. And the lead bad guy here is the Riddler. And the movie moves through its paces more like a detective story, a murder whodunit. It really has Fincher written all over it, even though he had nothing to do with this film. If I didn't know who the director was, I would guess, oh, this is a Fincher film, isn't it? Because you get Zodiac in here, you get Seven in here. It is so Fincher-y, but it's not. The way that they build the bad guy is really, really interesting. By the time we meet him, I mean, it's no secret that he's played by Paul Dano, a very good actor who owns this role. This is probably the best portrayal of the Riddler that I've ever seen. He is definitely somebody that could possibly return. They do tease the Joker, which it works really well. And it's very smart also that you don't start off with the Joker. You kind of save the Joker probably a second or third film. As a matter of fact, there was a deleted scene that was posted on the internet afterwards of another confrontation in Arkham Asylum between Batman and the Joker, where you get a better look at, and he's another pretty kind of well-known actor who's playing him. Colin Farrell plays the Penguin. You would never, ever recognize him. John Turturro, he's one of the mobsters. Again, this is such a realistic film, kind of like Joker. You can strip away most of the comic book aspects of this. Batman takes a beating, a complete beating in this film. He is really not even Bruce Wayne in terms of, he's not the dashing playboy millionaire. He's more like the brooding loner who doesn't want to come out of his house version of Bruce Wayne. Jeffrey Wright plays Commissioner Gordon. Andy Serkis plays Alfred. He's very good in it too. Again, they just built this world, and now I want them to continue it. And from what I understand, as far as DC goes, they are kind of leaning in this direction now. It looks like they really enjoyed what happened with Joker. They enjoyed what happened with The Suicide Squad and the Peacemaker series on HBO Max. So I think, based on this film, that is where they want to head towards right now. They want to head towards away from the Snyder world, the original, building blocks that they were trying to compete with Marvel, and kind of go in this direction, which is it's kind of like a different flavor of the same direction, if you will, because even the Snyder films, they were darker. They were still rooted in heavy comic book lore, but they were noticeably a darker, grittier version. But this is completely different in terms of how dark it goes. The way that it minimizes so much the superhero-ness of it. With these being very serious detective work kind of films. Towards the end of the film, you do have a sort of comic bookish sequence, a third act or fourth act, if you want to call it, where Batman has to rescue a whole bunch of people from a flood, situation. And that is possibly the biggest superhero-ish moment. But most of it is him trying to be a detective. He's trying to put the pieces together. He's discovering things about his family that he never knew, that he never understood. And it's changing him. It's very revealing of all these different things that had happened to him that he was never aware of, the background of his family, that sort of thing. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the Northman in terms of the clean-cut images that you have of the parents. He's an avenging character who's avenging. His life quest is to avenge what happened to his parents. And in the process, he's finding out things that make his image of his parents not the clean-cut thing that he always thought it was. Which is, again, one of these things that adds realism to these stories, that they're really not too many knights in shining white armor. There's just very distinctly shades of gray everywhere, and some are much darker than others. Zoe Kravitz plays Catwoman, and for the purposes of this film, and I think I've heard that even in the comics, her connection to all this that's happening is very personal, and it makes sense. And you do get that friction and that potential love affair between these two that never exactly works, because there's always the problem of vengeance for one character or the other. I can't wait for them to continue with this. I can't wait for the home video release. I can't wait for the extra scenes that were cut. The film was long, and to me, it kind of felt like a director's cut. And I know a lot of people complained that, they should have trimmed maybe a bit, maybe a half hour off this film or 20 minutes off of it. And I understand that, but it's one of these things that when you like it so much, you wish you had more. And that's how it felt like to me. It felt like they gave me more. They gave me that stuff. And even with the extra Joker scene that was released online, I wish that scene would have been in the movie because it was just so damn good. So, wow, these are, again, 4 films that I finally got around to talking about There is good stuff still happening in the movie theaters, even though some people seem to think that the movie theater industry is not what it used to be and it will never be what it was. There's still lots of movies this summer that I'm planning on seeing. And, you know, if it's anything like these 4, so far, so good. I'm very happy with what I'm seeing. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed today's show. Once again, I apologize for it being so late. Things have been happening. So many things have been happening. Best way to describe them is listen to the previous show. All these personal work-related events kind of drain the energy and the enthusiasm out of me sometimes, and this was one of those couple of weeks that were very difficult. But I do kind of regenerate, my interest and my joy being able to talk about these things with you. As usual, these are my personal reviews. You might love movies I hate. You might hate movies I love. That doesn't matter. The point of it is that it's out there and I'm enjoying it, and I'm sure and I hope you guys are having as much fun with these and many, many other movies. Like I mentioned when we started, I will have a couple of more movie reviews coming down because, believe it or not, since I watched these films in the movie theater, I already have 3 of them on Blu-ray or 4K. Believe it or not, that's how fast these things came out and how long it actually took me to put together the show. It's pretty embarrassing. I have not gone through the supplemental material of all these films. The Northman I received yesterday. Everything Everywhere All at Once, got that. The Batman, got that. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, I do not have that one on DVD yet because it just came out on Disney+. So yes, when the DVD for that one comes out, I'll get it, especially to be able to explore all the additional features. And so far, if technically this is the beginning of the summer season, the summer film season, these films came out within the last month or 2. So they are basically the first wave, and it's like, wow, I can't believe we got such good materials to start with. And again, all this stuff it goes to streaming services or on demand so fast now. It's just incredible how fast these things are there. It's like, while I'm editing this thing, half these films were already showing up on streamers. The Batman, I think, went to HBO Max. Doctor Strange, like I said, Disney+. Everything All at Once, I don't think it hit yet. But The Northman, I think, went straight to Peacock, I think, if I remember right. So it's just incredible how these things find their way to some home video so fast. You can't go wrong. This is a wonderful way to start the summer, and I cannot wait to crack open all these DVDs and start jumping right into the deleted scenes and the making ofs and all that stuff that I love. So thank you guys for listening and being so patient about waiting for new material, new content. I am trying to get you more as possible and different things, because I've been experiencing and watching and seeing and listening to so many different things lately that hopefully that will give you a variety of different things to try out. So, on behalf of everyone here, thank you for listening, and we will see you soon here at GeekFest Rants. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bruce Wayne.
I'm sorry.
I wouldn't be bothering you here, but your people keep telling me you're unavailable. You know, you really could be doing more for this city. Your family has a history of philanthropy, but as far as I can tell, you're not doing anything.
Asking for you.
The killer left this for the Batman. Why is he writing to you?
Hitler's latest. It's all about the Waynes. If we don't stand up, no one will.
You got a lot of cats.
I have a thing about strays. The bat and the cat. It's got a nice ring.
New friend of yours? I'm not so sure.
I'm just here to unmask the truth about this cesspool we call a city. You're part of this too.
Stay still!
How am I part of this?
Oh, you're really not as smart as I thought you were.
Bruce Wayne. All these years, you lied to me, Alfred.
We all have our scars, Bruce.
He's still a Wayne.
He's involved in this? No, he's not involved.
How do you know? He's a vigilante.
Who are you under there? What are you hiding?
Selena, they'll throw your life away.
Don't worry, honey. I got 9 of them.
It can be cruel, poetic, or blind. But when it's denied, it's through violence you may find.
Justice. The answer's justice.
Come on, vengeance. Let's get into some trouble.
If you would like to subscribe to our show, send us messages, or see video links to some of the topics we talked about today, please visit our homepage at GeekFestRants.com or our YouTube channel, Facebook page, or iTunes at GeekFest Rants.
I don't know what we're yelling about!
GeekFest Rants is produced by Carlos Perron, copyright 2022.
This broadcast is part of the IC Robots Radio Network. Visit icrobots.com for this and many other nerd/nostalgia related podcasts. You won't be sorry for long.